Here we have a 2005 Skoda Fabia. It's fitted with the 1.2 3-cylinder petrol engine and it's got roughly 78,000 miles on the clock. As part of the service the vehicle's in for today, we're going to be changing the spark plugs, which are located underneath this plastic cover on the top of the engine. So first off, we'll remove this cover. Right, this cover should just pull off. It's a ball and socket arrangement, just in rubber pegs. You've got the intake here, which you need to bear in mind, more importantly, when you put it back together, it needs to line up correctly with the throttle body. It's got a rubber seal on it. You've got an emissions hose here, which literally just pulls off. And that's the cover removed. And now you can see 1, 2, 3 coils. So next we'll remove one of the coils. Right, I'm going to demonstrate on number 1 cylinder. They're all the same. Now these can be a bit tight to get out. I've had problems with them in the past. They do literally just pull off. But I wouldn't recommend levering at the end here. You could risk breaking the multi-plug or the connection there. So I've used this in the past. You can try a pair of grips on here and just wiggle it slightly, but I can get really close to the centre of the coil there and just lever it off the back here, giving it a little wriggle, and it comes up quite easily. Now it's a little bit tight to pull it out. I don't really want to strain the cable too much, although you could probably unclip this. But what I'll do, I'm going to release the plug. I'll show you once it's off, it'll be easier to demonstrate. That's it. Right. So on the underside, you've got that little tab there which needs to be pulled back, and while I do that I tend to push the plug on. It takes the strain off of the little clip, and then pull it. Put it back on. It slides off. You can see a little lug there which it clips over. So that's one coil, one ignition coil removed. When you take these out, if you do them one at a time, that's fine, or you can take them all out. They don't necessarily have to go back on the same cylinders, but I tend to keep everything in order and put it back how I found it. So as you can see, the spark plug is quite a way down in the little well there. I've got a standard size spark plug socket which is 5/8. See if we can crack that loose. Oh, actually it wasn't that tight. There we go. One spark plug. We'll get the new ones out next and compare it and refit. So as you can see, it's a good idea to lay the new one next to the old one and just make sure they are the same length, because these threaded parts, they do vary in length and you don't want to be putting one in that's too long. It can cause some damage to the engine. But you can see it's the same number on the plugs as well. A couple of things to note. You can see they've got washer on them. The washers don't come off, but they're a crushable washer that seals up when you tighten the plug. Spark plug gap, they do generally come pre-gapped. You can look up a gap online, and if you've got some feeler blades you can double check it, but I mean you can generally tell by looking that that's the same as the old one. You just need to make sure that they haven't been dropped and the gap's been squashed up. You can get a pair of pliers and gently ease it out if it has been squashed. Before refitting, I just like to put a little dab of copper grease on there, just prevents it from seizing, and hopefully fitting and removal in the future will be a bit smoother. Okay, I've got the plug in the socket there, which should hold it nicely. Just nip that up. And next we'll get the ignition coil back on. So some cars have a separate coil which will feed all of the cylinders. This one has got one coil per cylinder. I think they call them like a pencil coil. Should just go straight in, push down. And now I find that I won't be able to get the plug on. I should have put the plug on before I pushed it right down. You should hear it click. That's it. So these spark plugs, they do vary in price. These Bosch ones I've picked up, they're around about £8 or £9 each. A lot cheaper than going to a main dealer and getting genuine ones, but also a good brand name. So I'll go ahead now and do the other two cylinders. We won't record it because it is the identical process. Okay, so all three plugs are done now, all the coils back on and plugged in securely. We've got to get this cover back on, which, as I said when I removed it, you can see it's just rubber sockets here and pegs sticking up off the engine to line up the emissions hose and the intake to go on the throttle body. So first off, I need to get that emission hose back on, which just pushes on. It's also got a little clip there which should line up with that lifting eye there. That's it. Then you've got your throttle body there to line up, and it just clips on, and that's it. All I'll do now, let's start it up, make sure it runs smoothly, hopefully it doesn't misfire. That sounds good. Give it a little rev. Yeah, that sounds nice. Ticks over nicely. And as with most of the jobs I do, I like to give it a road test. Just drive it in all different conditions really, just gently cruise along. Obviously give it a bit of acceleration, full throttle, and make sure it doesn't misfire and it's got the power that it normally has.